The N64 Bowser's Castle glitch is notorious for being the hardest 3-lap glitch category in the game, with only 9 players currently having made it on the leaderboards. For those of you who are new to the channel, I currently hold the world record in this category and have recently completed a 3-week long marathon stream playing solely this glitch, so I have a fairly unique insight into the track. I'm hoping with this video more people will gain an insight into the glitch and maybe give it a go themselves, potentially bagging a time to compete with some of the greats. I'll be breaking up the remainder of this video into 3 parts: the pole clip, the lap 1 driving, and the lap 2 and 3 no glitch driving. Here are the timestamps for those parts of the videos if you want to skip ahead. The glitch, aka getting a high clip. Here is an example of a good glitch setup with decently fast aligning and a solid high clip. Step 1 is to get onto the rail at the left of the start line. I like to slide left twice during the countdown and then feather my A to get the correct amount of boost. I then hop after starting so I have the right amount of speed to hop up onto the rail. Step 2 is the alignment. I use my alignment ghost, which you can find in the description, to tell me which brick to stop on. You want to be to the middle left of this brick before you start turning to face the pole. Too far to the left and you'll fall off, and too far to the right you'll have a much harder time getting the barrel roll with enough speed to get an ejection over the wall. Once stopped, you want to turn around and line up the right side of Funky's bandana with the right side of the pole. Step 3 is getting a barrel roll. When you're aligned, release B and push A. Just before dropping off the rail, release A, hold straight down and start wheeling to get Funky into the barrel roll state. Then go back to neutral on the control stick. The second wheelie is very lenient. It's important to note that the faster you press the second wheelie, the more likely you are to bounce, so delaying it does have its benefits. The way I found that worked is to wheelie when Funky's bike drops to a 45 to 50 degree angle. Doing the second wheelie this way makes the input really lenient, and it's much more helpful for getting consistent runs. As you shroom, you need Funky to be around here on the track. When I first started, I used these 3 lines as indicators. Feathering A as you're doing the first 2 wheelies is the best way to achieve this. If your speed goes above 20 km/h, you will leave the barrel roll state, which is a common fail when learning. The third wheelie should be pressed when Funky's bike is pretty much pointed straight up. Then, once Funky's shoulders are about to touch the ground, shroom and delay your 4th wheelie. You can spam your wheelie right as you shroom, which will give you some ejections, but to get consistency, delay that 4th wheelie as much as you possibly can before you hit the wall on the other side of the track. If you take anything from this video, delaying this 4th wheelie is what you should take. It's what helped me go from getting 1 curb hop an hour to getting 1 every few minutes. Once you get the ejection and start to fly over the wall, you need to focus on your control stick movements. Hold direct right into the pole and then down left as soon as possible after clipping. Pre-holding right or down right as you hit the pole will help you make it further on your clips. The curb hop is not QM. With the right inputs you can get the curb hop 100% of the time. Over the marathon I was getting an average of 1 curb hop every 3 to 5 minutes and often went through phases of getting 3, 4 or even 5 in a row. My best advice is to practice with save states and learn the rhythm of the inputs rather than focusing on visual indicators. The pole clip is completely QM. Basically, there's no way to control whether your attempt will look like this, or this. So as long as you're getting pole hits, i.e. making it over the wall, in a wheelie, and hitting the pole in a way that could result in a high clip, you'll eventually get an attempt which makes it. When you clip the pole, it's common, for me at least, to get a high clip which doesn't have enough height to make it far enough in the lava to reach the checkpoint. This is just luck and means you're getting close. If you get a high clip in this way, don't be disheartened, because it means you've done everything right, but the game just doesn't want to pay out those 777s. When in the air, my best advice is going to be just to hold back. You can tilt the bike forward at the very last second, but it's more likely to do more harm than good. Tilting the bike forward in the correct way at the correct time will give you an extra frame of airtime, which has been known to help James make the glitch before, but it has never helped me personally. The correct timing is tilting the bike so you land in the lava with Funky flat to the lava. Again, if I was just starting out with this glitch, I'd just tilt back. Where Funky lands in the lava is quite lenient. As long as you hold down right when going off the pole and get a good clip, you will make it. The closer you are to the wall, the more likely you will be to make it, and visually the checkpoint is around here, but there's no real way to know for sure until you respawn. Lap 1 driving after respawning. This is what a decent lap 1 will look like after you made the glitch. After landing in the right spot in the lava, Lakitu will respawn you on this lower platform. As you respawn, hold up on the control stick to touch the ground faster. To get the lap count, you need to turn around and land on the top section of the track. The easiest but slower method is to simply reverse as soon as you land. This is 100% consistent and fail-proof. Good if you're a nervous player. The quicker method is to charge a standstill mini turbo and turn to the left. Release your mini turbo as soon as possible and jump into the lava. As you jump, hold left and you won't be bounced back from the wall, so it's less likely that you'll fail the respawn. Clipping the edge of the track like this is only faster if you get Kid QM. It is more likely to make you fail the respawn anyway, so my advice is, don't do this. When you respawn up top, press A to get the landing boost and go to the left of this block. The rail cut isn't anywhere near as fast on lap 1 as it is on lap 2 and 3 to make it worth going for. Trick off the ramp and tilt back to lessen the chance of bounce on landing. Tilting back is slightly slower than tilting forward, but it's up to you. Again, practicing with save states either in Dolphin or on Service Pack is my best piece of advice. When you land from the ramp, hold a single drift around the last turn. Important to note, especially as we go into the no glitch lap driving, commit to a line and don't wheelie turn. You will lose a lot of speed if you do, because unlike Mac Bike and Bowser Bike, the Spear has minimal mini turbo boost, meaning there simply isn't enough boost to turn in your wheelie and not lose time when aligning for the corners coming up. No glitch driving. Laps 2 and 3 with the Spear. So the no glitch driving on this course is just as important to practice as the glitch is, in my opinion. Some of the turns can be very tricky, especially the hairpin and the spiral, especially on this vehicle. Of course, there is no other vehicle you can make this glitch with RTA. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play through a lap here. Actually, the second lap of my world record, which has some really decent lines. And then I'll show you what I use to visually indicate where I'm going. So as you come around the last turn, you want to be aiming for the middle of this bush up here. This bush is hard to see with the fire, but as I keep blowing, you'll be able to see as the fire disappears, I'm aiming directly in that center. After the next turn, you want to be aiming just like this. You'll see, as I pause here, that this thwomp just here can get in the way. And there's going to be a thwomp that can come down just here on this blue checkered bit later on in the turn. If you're aiming like I am, either in the middle of this green sign, then you're going to avoid this thwomp and this other thwomp 100% of the time. If you're worried about hitting this thwomp, you can always go to the further left here, because actually this thwomp is less likely to be down on any glitch pace runs. If you line up like this, you'll be able to hop as soon as you cross over onto this blue checked pattern. You'll see I hop just right here, just because that's when the red transitions into the blue. The next two turns are pretty self-explanatory, although this line coming up here is important to note. Basically, these thwomps are going to be in the way on decent paced glitch runs. You want to aim ideally for the center of them, as you can see that I'm doing just here. And as these rise, if these are rising, it means this middle thwomp is not going to be in the way. If this thwomp is in the way, it means these two are not going to be down, or you'll be basically out of the way for them. You can either opt to go down the straight anyway, like I would be aligning here, and then hop out of the way and go wide. I.e. at this point, instead of choosing to go straight under this thwomp, hopping out the way, just here, and then going around that next turn, approaching it wider. You can go tighter, but it's a much more tricky spin drift input, and you're more likely to bonk the wall around the next turn. On this pace, I'm fast enough to go under this thwomp, and if you're on a 29.4, you're likely to be able to go under this thwomp. Anything else, you want to go wide. Approaching this next turn, you want to be basically 3/4 of the way, if not further, into this wall. You'll see that I'm going to be aligning for the edge of this green arrow, which is a good visual indication for you to use. And as you're approaching, we're going to be using the dark spots on the road and hopping, sorry about the glitchiness here, but hopping right as we hit this final dark spot. You can see it starts dark spot here, ends dark spot here. We're going to be hopping and timing our last hop. So we basically start drifting at the edge of this dark spot. The wider we are, the earlier we can hop. This next room is very tricky. You basically just have to eyeball it or know the paces of the thwomps. On this pace, I'm able to go tight enough to ensure that this thwomp is not in the way, but it's just ever so barely able to be made. This thwomp is going to be more of a pain on a lot more runs than this first thwomp will be. Reason being, it's going to block this path as we enter into the next turn. Right here, it's important to know that where this thwomp is as you're approaching. Ideally, you'll be going either where this arrow is or this side of this turn. If you're approaching anything this side of this arrow, i.e. here or to the right, you're going to have a very tough time trying to make it round the next turn without bonking the wall. Approaching this from the angle that I'm doing here to the right of the middle is ideal. That way it'll make the next turn way easier to handle and you'll be able to have more of a chance of making it around the stairs. At the bridge, you're going to want to aim around 3/4 of the way, I'd say, to the left of this wall. Reason being, you want to take this next turn wide, and as you'll see with the inputs, spin drift ideally into the next turn. If you do it this way, it's very easy that you're going to be able to make this turn 100% of the time, and if you spin drift correctly and harshly enough, you won't actually get thrown as wide on the stairs. This is a very tricky turn to get right, and there is several ways to do it. The way I do it here is actually slightly unoptimal. You'll see that I do one spin drift and I don't hop afterwards. You can hop right about now. So you'll see I get basically a bounce, but if you hop on the frame that you land, you'll be able to get a tight hop and it will make the stairs slightly more easily doable. On the stairs themselves, you want to be holding tight as possible. You'll see I release the mini turbo. Actually, this is the third step I feel like I release the mini turbo. Once you release that mini turbo on one of those lower steps, you'll hopefully get a good bounce and be able to aim yourself for where this arrow is here. If you go too tight, you're going to have to either clip this section of grass at the very edge or hop around the turn to make it. It is slower to do that, but it's definitely viable, and I've saved many runs doing that. This was actually how I had my world record fail, was the stairs just sent me wide because it was just RNG. Sometimes these stairs, even if you do everything right, can just send you completely doolally. It's ridiculous. But I'm sure you'll get used to that. If you're lined up well to take the hairpin and get a lucky bounce, it can look something like this. Going into the next turn, my best advice is to look for this window up here. You want to be aimed so you're basically to the middle or to the left of this window. And then once you hit the edge of this coping, so this coping on the other side, you'll want to delay drift into the next turn. On spear, you don't need to clip this grass. I found it's ever so slightly slower in my attempts, but it is an option if you think you are going to be bonking into that wall if you're going too tight. Starting the drift wide and entering tight is the aim of the game here. You'll see my alignment as I press play here is actually really good, so I don't need to delay drift. However, if you're too early, i.e. lined up more here, and you think you're going to hit this earlier, then you can actually delay drift a lot on this turn and still make it even with a fairly atrocious alignment. It's a very easy turn to take if you know what you're doing. Around this next turn, you want to be aiming, and this is quite important because you can lose a lot of time on the spiral, for this little shadow up here. If I press play, you'll see I'm going to between a third and halfway between the edge of this shadow onto the left. This L is perfect for lining up, and it's quite lenient, but also if you're either too wide or too tight here, it can really throw off a run. Practicing this alignment in particular is going to be very helpful for getting successful runs on this track. Right around here is when you need to chain your wheelie. In fact, you can see I'm already preemptively pressing the wheelie button here. After you get this chain wheelie, you want to be delay drifting and following this curved shadow here until you take this next spiral turn. You'll see what I mean. At this point, it's important to note my control stick position. It is not directly left. If it was like this, I would bonk this spiral. However, it is almost directly left. Visually, just getting a feel for this is the best way I can describe this. You want to be as close to this wall as possible without bonking it. You'll get a really good feel for this, and I mean, the best way to do it is just practice in Service Pack. At the end of the spiral here, there's two ways you can go. I opt 100% of the time to go for the rail cut. If you know what you're doing with the rail cut, it's very consistent. However, I will not be covering that in today's video. What I will be covering is going the other route. As you're going the other route, you want to be tighter into this spiral, and at the end, just hold your drift ever so slightly later. The entry into the spiral is very much the same. It's just how much you delay getting that last mini turbo is going to affect where you are positioned, either this way or this way. You can see here I delay my mini turbo ever so slightly, and I'm going to be positioned about here. This is great and exactly where you want to be lined up to go to the left of the rail cut at the end. This is a great alignment because if you're too far to the left here, you'll be hitting this tower here, and if you're too far to the right, then you'll have to do massive adjustments to avoid this tower over here. As you're in the air, holding down will obviously give you less airtime, but it is more risky as you can bounce. And the inputs for the end of the track are the same as a no glitch lap. Thank you so much for watching, and best of luck getting that coveted RBC glitch.